So let's practice a little bit. We're going to make our first easy screen kind of like the quintessential hello world when you're learning a new programming language. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that our INI file has the registration of the .com file that we wish to use. But first we need to make the .com file that we're going to be using for our easy screen page. So I've gone and created a new document inside of Notepad++. First thing I'm going to do is go File, Save As. Find my way to the project directory where I can save that .com file. And for Sinutrain, it's under C, Siemens, Sinutrain, version 4.5 in my case, HMI, OEM, Sinumerik, HMI, PROJ. Inside of there, we can give this a name, example.com. Make sure that we have all types selected so it doesn't save it as a .com.txt. Hit save. Now we have our example.com file that we can load into our INI. So to find the INI file, we'll go back to File, Open, and again, that's hidden deeply in the file structure, but from where we're at right now in the project directory, if we just move up one level, we can go to CFG. We can open up this easyscreen.ini file. If you don't have this easyscreen.ini file, you can either create one from scratch or you can find it in the templates directory that is located inside of the manual. They tell you where to go to find that. But for a basic screen, all you really need is this little section right here. We have start files inside of square brackets. Then we have this line of code right here that is basically our meat and potatoes for our easy screen. I'll take away that comment and we have start file 03. We can make that whatever number we want as long as none of the numbers overlap. All the stuff down here again is commented out, but this is what the Siemens.ini file will contain to show you the different places that you can put your different soft keys and whatnot. It's best to copy one into this section here because all of the information that you need is already backfilled for you. In this case here, this particular start file is going to point to machine menu in auto mode. If I don't want auto mode, I can scroll down to this guy here, start file 05. Grab that, copy it, and then just replace what I have here. Change that to a 1. Now we're going to be in the jog menu. So whenever we're in jog mode in machine area, which is our main machine area here, we can run example.com. Inside of example.com, the first thing we're going to need to do is define the soft key that we're going to use to jump into this .com file. And to do that, we put // s. In parentheses, we put start. At the end of that, we would put end. And then inside of here is where we have to put our soft key designation for entering this menu. It's always good to have a .com file that you can use as a template because then we can copy this information here into our .com file and then just modify for what we need. So in this case, we'll use horizontal soft key number 6 and populate it with the name of the soft key. In double quotes, I'll put fill example, and we'll change this to HS6. In the press method, we'll say HS6 will jump to main menu with an LM command. So this is load mask or load main menu or load menu. And in double quotes, we'll put main menu. Inside of the same file, we don't have to put anything else. But if we wanted to access a different .com file, then we would put comma, and then in double quotes, we would put the name of the .com file that we wish to access from here. So we could say template.com or something like that. So right now, if I just save this, example.com, and go back to Sinutrain, as soon as I leave and come back to a soft key menu, it will automatically load the .com file, and we'll see that fill example button has been set. If we click on it, it's going to say mask called has not been found, and the name of mask is main menu. So we can't find the main menu mask because we haven't created it yet inside of that .com file. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a main menu using //m, and in parentheses we're going to say main_menu, and if we need the example header, you just copy and paste that, and we can see right here our identifier is main menu. If we put a slash, our header can be welcome to main menu. We don't need anything else. We're not loading any graphics at the moment. We're not positioning anything. So we can just put that, terminate it with //end. And again, the case doesn't really matter. The only time case matters is if you want to put a new line with the %n. If you put a capital N, it doesn't recognize it. But any other callouts here, the HS or VS or the press methods or the start and main mask methods, they don't really seem to care much about case sensitivity. We'll save that, go back, go to fill example, and at the top we can see in our header, welcome to main menu. Now we have a mask, we're not getting any errors. If we wanted to load a graphic file, again, in the older versions, you have to make sure that you save the graphic in the folder that relates back to the resolution of your screen. So in the ICO folder, there's different resolutions. Right now I'm working from a 1280 resolution. I can pick one of the ones that I have here. I can load anything else that I want to in here as long as it's a .png or a .gif I've found will work, but they don't animate, unfortunately. But we'll just use bottomup.png as an example. So in our //m, we have our main menu identifier. We have our welcome to main menu header. We'll put another slash, and we'll put bottomup.png in quotes. We'll save that. Go back into our screen. And you'll see that the first thing it does is it loads the screen. It'll load into what amounts to basically 0, pixel position. If we want to move that, we would then put slash to get into dimension. We would put a slash to get into system variable. And we put a slash to get to our graphic position. So from here, we can move this over in the X direction, 20, and we'll move it down 75. We'll save that. We'll exit out with the little return button here. Go to fill example, and we'll see that the photo has moved. From here, we could start identifying what our soft keys are going to do. And to do that, again, if we look at one of the other .com files, we can see that we have VS1, VS2, HS1, HS2, etc., etc. We could just copy this, paste it in, and this will create our vertical soft keys and our horizontal soft keys for this particular mask. To define what the keys do, first we give the soft key a name, and then underneath the button declarations, we then define the press methods for each of these keys. I really only need to do one press method because I could just copy that, paste it in, and change the VS to number 7. And then in that case, it would do something. The next one, we can copy this, paste it, call it VS8. And then inside of VS8, we can say exit, which is an internal command. So if we go back, we'll see that we have our 2 soft keys. When we hit exit, because it's an internal command, it knows to exit out of the screens. So your variable definitions occur before your soft key definitions. So we'll insert a couple of lines above the soft key callups. And again, I can grab this sample text right here, and I'll grab the first variable and paste that in. That way we know kind of what we're looking at, what we're working with. We can say def variable 1. We can give it a data type. We'll say in this case a real and 4-place decimal. If we wanted this to be a toggle, we would use a star, and then we can put in our numeric values separated by a comma. But in this case, we don't want any kind of limits. We don't want to make it a toggle. So we'll just put a slash with an empty space, another slash with a 0 to default this area here to 0. Here we will say number 1, which is our long text. If we wanted a short text, we could put in num1. If we were working with a graphic, we can use graphic text. In this case here, we have this work diameter. You can change this to no1. The next selection is our unit text. You say IN for inch. And then under tooltip, which is a little pop-up, we can say hello world. We don't necessarily need any attributes, but WR5 is good to use because that is what populates the variable in real time as you type the numbers. So you don't have to press input in order to register that value. If we were using another graphic for help display, we can call that in this section right here. If we were tying this to a system or user variable, we would call that up here. And then the next couple of fields are positions and colors. So for right now, let's just leave those all blank. We'll save this. We'll reopen our page, and we'll see that we get our little variable pop up right here. Our long text is what happens in the upper corner of the screen. Our short text is what happens to the far left. Our graphic text is this little guy here. Here is the values that we could fill in, and we could see that it's a 4-place decimal. We have our unit display here, and then when we hover over, we get the tooltip pop-up. If I wanted to define one of these horizontal soft keys to do something, I could just put a name of howdy, and then in the press methods, I would say press HS1 and press, and then do something. We can tell this also to exit. Go back in. We can see that the button has been created. Press on it, and it exits out. So what we can do now is copy and paste. We'll call this variable 2. We'll paste again. We'll call this variable 3. We will change some of the internal text. We'll save those. And now what I want to do is in VS7, I want to put a little information for how to handle these variables. And in this case, we'll say variable 3 equals variable 1 plus variable 2. We'll save that. Go back into our screen. And we'll see that we have the 3 boxes. We have our number 1, number 2, and the product. And if we say 8 and 5 and hit accept, you'll see that the resulting number is variable 1 plus variable 2, which is 8 plus 5 equals variable 3, which is the result number here. Being that this is an input box, we could actually come in and change this, and the result won't take place until we hit accept again to fix it back to where it was. But what we can do is we can change the attribute of this product box and say that it's not an input box, it's an output box. So it only displays a result, it doesn't allow you to put in user input. So to do that, we can change the input mode from WR5 to WR1, which will change the attributes of that input box from an input to a read-only. We'll close this out, reopen it, and you'll notice that we have 2 input boxes and then we have a result that we cannot select. So if we go 8, 5, and hit accept, it'll give us the result of 13. We cannot click on that to change it, so the result will always be proper. So now let's do something a little bit different. We saw that in the manual, we have this change method. What the change method will do is it will automatically accept a change based on the difference of another variable or another field. So what I mean by that is, if we look at our example, in order to get the result down here, I have to put in 5 and 5 and then hit accept, which is fine. But if we wanted to do something a little bit more automated for this result variable right here, what we can do is, instead of tying VS7 to this variable 3 equals variable 1 plus variable 2, if we eliminate that and we put in this code here, and we say change with a global call out, which means that there's no condition inside of the parentheses, there's no parameter that we put in. So in the case of this here, change is reliant on a change in variable 1. In this case here, change is just reliant on a change globally within the Easyscreen. So if I'd say change variable 3 equals variable 1 plus variable 2, and then we end the change, if I save that, exit out, and go back in, as I start typing, you'll see that the result automatically changes as I key in the information. So that's pretty useful for a multitude of things where you want the change to occur in real time as you're putting in the value. And if you start typing in additional numbers, you'll see that as we type in those numbers, it automatically changes the result as I go along. So now let's try some other things. Let's define each of these buttons to do different tasks. So we'll take out this change method here, and instead of accept, we'll get rid of that. We'll say VS1 add, VS2 subtract, VS3 multiply, and VS4 divide. And we don't even have to limit ourselves to that. We could say plus sign, and then if we put a percent sign with a lowercase n, that will give us a definitive line break right here. put a minus, same thing, put a star, and a slash. And that'll pretty up our soft keys a little bit. Save that, exit, go back in, and we'll see that the soft keys have already been defined. Now we have to tie the actual occurrences in with each of these soft keys. And again, case sensitivity isn't really that important in 99.9% of the things that you're doing, but I like to keep it a little bit consistent. So we'll say, in the case of press VS1, we'll actually use the call out that's in press number 7. In press VS2, we'll do the same thing, but we will say variable 1 minus variable 2. Same thing for VS3, and we'll put a star for multiply. And if you notice, another nice thing about Notepad++ is that it's got a rudimentary IntelliSense. So as you start typing, it will come up with some recommendations on things that will use the same letters that you are typing. So I type EN, and my options at the top here are end or end press. So I can just select that, hit enter, and it'll automatically backfill for me. So we went through and we set all of these different conditions for each of these soft keys. We'll save our project, exit out, go back to our example, and now we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So if we start typing in numbers, if I say 5 divided by 3, we'll get 1.667. If I say 5 plus 3, it says 8. If we say 5 minus 3, 2, and 5 times 3 is 15. So now what if we wanted to add a little bit more flair to this even still? What I can do is we can start using conditionals and toggles, and we'll say variable toggle1 equals, and then we will copy this guy right here. Again, it's a little bit easier if you copy the stuff instead of having to try and remember what all of the variables mean. But in the later versions, as I mentioned in the earlier parts of the videos, they have made some changes in 4.7, and that has cascaded into the more recent versions, 4.8, 4.9. And they've gotten away from this archaic style. But because I'm running version 4.5 in Sinutrain, I'm using the old style, which dates back to at least 2013. So you've got almost a decade's worth of legacy product that you can use with this syntax versus the newer stuff. And as long as you have a reference as to what each of these do, it's not that bad. What we'll do is we'll make this a WR5. This guy here, right in between our R4 and our 0, we'll make a toggle menu. So we'll put a star. We'll change the first parameter to a C for character. And then inside of here, put quote, plus, comma, quote, minus, comma, quote, star, comma, quote, slash. So now we've created a toggle menu with a single character, and the single characters will toggle between plus, minus, multiply, and divide. We'll save that. We'll check our project. And we'll check to see if anything's broken. We'll look in our Easyscreen log, and we'll see that there's an invalid toggle array. And this is something that I've had some issues with in the past, which means if I click on here, I'm not going to get anything. It'll show me what I'm looking for, but it's not going to give me what I'm looking for. Okay, so I found out what I was missing. I actually had a default value in here of 0. So I removed the default value, and now everything is working accordingly, or as good as it can. There is an issue in Sinutrain where if you hit the select key, it doesn't really select through the menu. It just gives you the drop down. And if you hit the select key when you're on a parameter screen, it'll actually give you a number 5. So there's a, I don't know, there's an issue with Sinumerik in that aspect. So now we have the characters. Now we have to start building the conditionals. So let's get rid of these variables here, and we'll start building our conditional logic. And we'll say if toggle1 is equal to plus, variable 3 equals variable 1 plus variable 2. Then we'll do an end if. Exit the screen, go back in. We'll check our event log. There's no error messages. So we'll start by putting in some values. And we can see that the first conditional actually works. If we change this to a minus and hit that, we can see that's not going to work. I'll put in 6, I'll hit add, and there's nothing occurring because we don't have the conditionals for the rest of these yet. So what we can do at this point is we can put else, then on a separate line, if toggle1 equals minus sign, we'll say variable 3 equals variable 1 minus variable 2. And each of the ifs from this point on, we have to terminate with an end if. So we'll just copy this to here, and we'll say if toggle1 is equal to star and equal to slash, and then just change these accordingly. And we'll see here that this if is terminated by this end if down here, and each of the subsequent ifs inside of the else's are terminated between each one. So going back to a comment that I made, yes, this does handle else if, but you have to make sure that the if is on a separate line from the else, or else it doesn't work properly, as opposed to a lot of other programming languages where else and if just go on the same line. So we'll save this, and while we're at it, we can clean up our soft keys. And again, we don't need to have all of the soft key declarations with the double quotes. So we can just say result, save that. And if we want to move if we want to put the operator in between our variable numbers, what we can do is we can just go here and just change the order in which we have our variable declarations. We can get rid of this text here because we don't really need any of this. If we leave the commas, it will put this result here in the proper position, which will be in this field here. So we made all those changes, we saved our file, exit, go back in. Let's change this to operator, save, go back in. So we have number 1, we have our operator, and we have number 2. So you can put number 1, 8, number 2, 9, and we have our addition operator, hit result, we have 17, select minus, 8 minus 9, result -1, 8 times 9, 72, and 8 divided by 9 is 0.8889. So as you can see, there's a lot you can do inside of the Easyscreens that make them very powerful as far as building GUIs for custom things that you would do on your control or things that a customer would need. You can tap into existing programs, existing user cycles that you've created. You can tap into variable tables that you've used in the past. You're not limited to addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, but that's just something that you can do with these conditional statements using soft keys. You can also take all of this and put this into the change method and have it so that you don't even have to use the soft key. You could just change the operator and it automatically changes in real time. Another operator that we can add in is Modulus. Not that you'll ever really need to use Modulus in here, but Modulus is something that we can add in. You just say else if toggle 1 is equal to %, which is the C call out for Modulus, and we'll say variable 3 equals variable 1 mod variable 2. We'll add the % to our toggle list here. Save that. Exit, go back in. And let's try something that would have a modulus operator. Say 10, 9, modulus. And we could see that the modulus of 10 divided by 9 is 1. Because that's the remainder whole number dividing 10 into 9. Another example would be 16 mod 9 would be 7. So the way that this works is that the 16 will only divide into 9 one time. It's a little tricky to wrap your head around, but it's the first number divided by the second number, and then the remaining value is the modulus. It's the leftover value. Another example, say 20 modulus 9 is 2, because 9 times 2 is 18, and then modulus would be 2. The remaining value to get to the original value of 20 would be 2. So 9 times 2 is 18, 18, 19, 20, resulting modulus of 2. So for the sake of not having to re-record all of the stuff that I did with this toggle value here and this change method, I did find that while it did work the way that I had it with the end if after each of the secondary if conditionals, the log was spitting out an error message. It did work. It did take it, it accepted it, and it passed through, and everything worked fine. But for more downstream things, what I found is that you have to end all of the ifs that you create at the very bottom. This gives me a happy Easyscreen log, whereas if I had the ifs here and here and here, it would work again, but it just didn't like it in the log. It would output an error message. It would say that there's an end if where it shouldn't be. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, we not only have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, we have modulus, we have and, or, not, and round, and we also have trig functions that we can use. So we could actually build an entire scientific calculator out of an Easyscreen if we really needed to, wanted to, or if the customer had a need for something that the standard Siemens calculator didn't provide. As another side note, I do want to point out that there is a limitation to the standard Siemens interface of 5 Easyscreens that you can create without having to purchase the option for the additional Easyscreens. It is mentioned in the manual, but you are limited to 5 from a basic Siemens install standpoint. But if you have the option already, then you can make as many Easyscreens as you want, but chances are you may have to purchase the additional Easyscreen creation option if you want to make more than 5. So as far as relational operators go, we can see that we use the equal in our if statement. So we put if our toggle is equal with the relational operator. If we wanted to do a data comparison, we can use not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. And to just show you that real quick, what we can do is go into our press VS1, and we will call VS1, because we have a real time in our change method, we can say find out. Put a line break there, so find out. And what are we going to find out? We're going to find out one of these. So we can take this, copy it. So what we can do after we paste this is we can change this around to if variable 1 is equal to variable 2. Down in here, we can say DLGL, which is dialog line, which will put a resulting value here. And inside of DLGL, we can put number 1 is equal to number 2. And we can do the same thing here. Copy, paste, paste, and then same thing here. We'll take this. I'll get rid of that. Save. And now from here, we'll hit find out. And we'll see down in the dialog, number 1 is equal to number 2. We'll make number 2 greater than number 1. Hit find out. And we'll see that number 1 is less than number 2. We'll see here, make this 6 and 4. Hit find out. Number 1 is greater than number 2. And you'll notice that the not equal is not coming up, mainly because these ones here happen after. So if I were to put this guy below this, we would have a conflict of which one would happen last, and then the last one that will happen will take precedence over the condition that happened prior. So this one's kind of a dead end because it gets superseded by these guys here. So we could see that we have an equal, we have a greater than and less than, and that's really all we need for getting our relational result with the find out soft key.